kowtowing to China. Anyone know where the word kowtowing came from? China! It's defined as kneel and touch the ground with the forehead in worship or submission as part of the Chinese custom. So we're going to call this kowtowing to China in large part because first up is Bill Maher, whom we love because he makes fun of the right and he makes fun of the left. And here's Bill Maher with a number of really funny clips talking about how we are kowtowing to China. First up, Maher talks about Eileen Goo. You know, she's the freestyle skier in the Olympics who ended up betraying her country, which is the United States of America, and said, I'm going to be a Chinese citizen instead, and I'm going to compete for China in the Olympics. Well, Maher just went after a whole bunch of celebs in this piece. We have a number of different clips. First up, he talks about Eileen Goo, the freestyle skier, but also China's tennis star Peng Shuai, who ended up going missing because she said that a party official had raped her. We have this first clip from Bill Maher. Here it is.
And finally, new rule. Someone has to tell China, you can steal our trade secrets, our software, and our intellectual property, but we draw the line at our hot freestyle skiers. Now, if you've been like me over the past few weeks, glued to your TV watching the Olympics, that makes exactly two of us. We knew there were shithole countries, but who knew there was a shithole superpower? But I'm sure you've heard about American citizen Eileen Goo, the beautiful model, influencer, and now gold medal winning skier who was born and raised here in America, but who chose to ski in the Olympics for China. Cool, huh? Is it? Is that cool now? To choose to represent a totalitarian police state over America? The Olympics pretends to only be about sports, but of course the Games have always been a bit of a proxy war for which country has the best system. And by choosing Team China, Eileen Goo became a living symbol of China's triumph over the West, which wouldn't bother me so much if I thought China had triumphed over us in the ways that really matter, but they haven't.
So, no, they haven't. And Eileen Goo, ladies and gentlemen, she is a gold medalist, if you will, from the Olympics, decided to ski for China. I'm pretty sure the Chinese Communist Party recruited her well in advance of the Olympics when she decided to flip her allegiance. And then, of course, CNN, naturally, puts in the CNN style section why Eileen Goo is luxury fashion's dream model. And they just go on and just pour all of this nonsense over what a wonderful person that she is because she won the gold medal in freestyle skiing. And they say the 18-year-old's gold medal performance in the big air competition thrust her into the global spotlight, sparking such a furor in China that social media platform Weibo crashed under the weight of interest. But Goo has spent years establishing herself as both a top athlete and a hugely bankable model who appeals to brands in both Asia and the West. Well, of course, we know what happened there. They gave Eileen Goo a whole bunch of money in order to get her to model in China, but also, more importantly, to get her to compete for China. Not a surprise. So Maher is torching these celebrities. And this entire series we have here in Mark the Millennials is a series of clips from Maher, just torching one celebrity after another. So next up, he talks about how Britain returned Hong Kong in 1997, and the Chinese mainland, CCP, said, well, we're going to leave Hong Kong alone, and they're going to just kind of like govern the way they are, kind of maybe a territory with lots of freedom and special freedoms that people don't get on the mainland. Of course, that didn't happen. And then he segues, Bill Maher segues, that is, on the NBA, which, of course, they are the biggest tools there are in the United States right now when it comes to kowtowing to China. We have that clip, and here it is.
Now, we do have human rights issues right here at home. We do. But we're still, at least for another 3 years, a democracy based on freedom. And they are an authoritarian surveillance state based on how'd you like to disappear for a few months? Like that tennis player who recently vanished for a while when she said she'd been raped by a government official. We do still throw too many black people in jail. But perspective matters. China has basically jailed an entire ethnic minority, the Uyghurs, a situation that both the Trump and Biden administrations has called a genocide. America is not close to that. And it's a cynical dodge to pretend that China's sins should be overlooked because we all do it.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's the same old wokeness, right? That the idea that you can't basically say that the people in China are folks that are in any way, shape, or form subjugating people, because then that would be racist. And Maher actually talks about this at the end of this clip. I think it's the last clip where he defines what woke is and how the left is really messing this up. So here's another clip from Maher, once again, hitting one celebrity after another. Here's a clip.
John Cena took that deal. Well, come on, China accounts for 34% of global box office, and he's a movie star now. So, like the Uyghurs, last year he learned he needed to get some re-education. You see, John, referred to Taiwan as a country as if it was a separate country from China, which it is. But China would like to do to Taiwan what it did to Tibet and what it's now doing to Hong Kong. So we were treated to this video.
我必须说，现在就是很重要。我爱更尊重中国，更中国人。我很抱歉对我的错误。
And I thought steroids shrunk your balls.
So John Cena, of course, is a professional actor and a wrestler, right? And that's, of course, Maher making fun of him because Cena, of course, looks like he's on steroids big time. Obviously, he lifts all the time. He's this massive dude. And he made the mistake of criticizing China as far as he is concerned, because much of his money and the box office receipts come from China. And so that was John Cena speaking, of course, in Chinese. I'm not sure if it was Mandarin or one of the other languages. I'm assuming it was Mandarin. And because I don't speak, of course, the languages in China, naturally, I don't know anyone that really does. Nonetheless, that was him. And he was apologizing. It was almost like he was put in a re-education camp and hit over the head and said, yeah, you must apologize to the CCP. And that's the only way we're going to continue to show your movies in China. It's the only way you're going to make all this money. That's almost hard to believe, how the celebs are kowtowing to China. And I just want to say this. Good for you, Bill Maher, for going after them. So here's Bill Maher again talking about Eileen Goo and others in the NBA with a few clips on that. And here it is.
So can you really blame 18-year-old Eileen Goo, who's already made over $31 million as the face of 23 brand products in China, for following in the footsteps of other American celebrities? Some of Goo's defenders say it's racist to ask if she's still an American citizen, and she herself won't say. Why is that racist?
Exactly. Why is it racist to say, hey, Eileen Goo, you just went in the Olympics and competed for China, even though you're an American citizen? Are you still an American citizen? And by the way, you're earning $31 million a year while living in China. And you made this $31 million literally overnight as a result of being a model and a celeb because you're, somebody who's a freestyle skier. Are you showing your fealty to China, or are you still an American citizen? Perfectly reasonable thing to ask. And it's not a racist thing to ask. But of course, the woke crowd is now saying, well, yeah, you can't ask that question. Of course, MSNBC and CNN and ABC, CBS. But nonetheless, he continues. Maher continues, and now he's hitting on the NBA. And first up, here it is.
In 2020, NBA players wore jerseys that said freedom, speak up, and justice. But I guess those things only matter for home games. Sorry, Uyghurs. Someone has to tell me where we got this rule that you can't criticize China, because I suspect we got it from China. Because after all, it's where we get everything else.
And that's technically where he ended that kind of soliloquy over China. But we still have another clip because he defines what woke is. But in that particular clip, of course, Maher is talking about the NBA and Enes Kanter Freedom, and he's showing up pictures, if you're watching us on YouTube or Rumble, where Enes Kanter Freedom, who plays for the Boston Celtics, would normally wear and regularly wear jerseys that talked about freedom and free the Uyghurs and this kind of thing. And he got in a lot of trouble from the NBA because the NBA was getting in a lot of trouble with China, where one of their biggest markets, if not very soon the biggest market, will be for the NBA. And naturally, since the NBA is all about money, they can't even have a conversation about anything that has to do with freedom and totalitarianism, because naturally, if you're in the NBA, you kneel when they play the United States national anthem. But when it comes to criticizing China, what do? Oh, no, you must be like, what is it? John Cena. That's right. You must be like John Cena, the wrestler who went and spoke in Mandarin and apologized to the Chinese people about the fact that he was criticizing their system of government and how there were people in concentration camps. Well, here is Bill Maher talking about the definition of woke. And it's pretty interesting because, remember, this is a comedian from the left who's kind of just had it. And as a critical thinker, is just using comedy and criticizing everybody, which is what comedy is supposed to do. Here's that clip.
The definition of woke was supposed to be being alert to injustice in society. But because the woke now see race first and everything else never, fear of being accused of racism has given a free pass on human rights abuses to China and any other places that are perceived as non-white. If China was in Europe, would they get away with having concentration camps without more of an outcry from America?
No, of course not. Because it's okay to go after people who are white and doing really bad things, especially in Western Europe. But it's not okay to do the same thing with China because naturally, since these folks are Asian, they are somehow an oppressed people. Well, in fact, in China, the people who are oppressed are indeed the Uyghurs and many others who are Asian, but they're being oppressed by the CCP. And so you got Maher saying, look, the definition of woke used to mean that you would be supporting those people. But now, of course, you have to identify with them, because when you identify with them, you're talking about race rather than reality. Pretty cool stuff. I got to tell you something, podcast listeners. When it comes to comedy, there are very few comedians left in the United States who are willing to speak this way. And I know it probably drives you crazy that I like Bill Maher, because Bill Maher makes tons of fun of Republicans. I mean, he absolutely hates Donald Trump. He skewers Donald Trump. He can't stand much of the Republican Party's values. But nonetheless, I listen to this guy because he makes equal fun of and uses satire to do so, makes fun of the Democrats and how crazy they have become.